welcome to Half the Battle. Well, my Patreon supporters have voted. And so the subject of this mashup video is Hulk Hogan. Yeah, Hulk Hogan. You know, I thought they'd vote for CM Punk or maybe Jake the Snake Roberts, but no, we got Hogan. Well, that's nice and awkward. Look, many people who follow wrestling closely have always known Hogan, the real-life person, was a douchebag. Hell, OSW Review started just to show how much of an asshole he was in the 80s and early 90s. And now the world has found out he was also a racist douchebag. And I would be foolish not to mention that here. So, how can I handle this? Simple. We're not talking about real-life Terry Bollea in the G.I.Joe universe here. We're gonna talk about fictional character Hulk Hogan. And yes, wrestlers totally count as fictional characters. Hell, from the mid-80s to the late 90s, they were practically cartoon characters. Literally in some cases.
First, me and my pals form a rock band and get challenged by Rowdy Piper and his band of turkeys.
Who's your favorite rockin' wrestler? Hulkster! And what's your favorite music? Rock and roll!
So, what characterizes Hulk Hogan?
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man.
Well, he's a real American, fights for the rights of every man. So, I'd say he'd be a shoo-in for the Joe team. And it would be a complete freaking disaster. Why, you ask? Well, even completely in kayfabe, Hogan has always done his best to be the center of attention. He's number one and will tolerate nobody above him. So, he'd insist on being in command of the Joe team. And that's even when he was the real American good guy. Imagine if he was evil Hollywood Hogan. Well, I'd assume he'd join Cobra then or something? In any case, Hogan is a terrible leader. For proof, let's take a look at the Survivor Series. In case you don't know, briefly, the Survivor Series used to be a bunch of matches where one group of wrestlers would take on another with a captain on each team. Hogan, of course, was frequently the captain. In 1987, his team was defeated by Andre the Giant's team. In 88, Hogan won, but with only 2 out of 5 people remaining on his team. 89 was worse, as Hogan was the only survivor, and 1990 was the same. By the way, 90 was the last of his team matches. In 91, he lost a singles match to a zombie mortician. Because wrestling! So, most of the time, this great leader either loses or wins, but loses most of his team. If that track record would carry over to him leading the Joe team, well, then he might as well be a Cobra sleeper agent. And that's exactly how I would write it if they asked me to come up with a story to integrate Hulk Hogan in the G.I.Joe universe. He'd start off joining the Joes, being all patriotic and charismatic and crap, but gradually, bit by bit, he'd start showing signs of selfishness, make bad decisions, and would cause the Joes losses. Then, halfway through, swerve! It would turn out he was working for Cobra all along, and adopts his I did it all for the money, Hollywood NWO Hogan persona. Then, however, it would turn out this wasn't Cobra's smartest move, as he tried to take over Cobra himself, leading to civil war. He'd essentially become an even more arrogant version of Serpentor. In conclusion, while Hulk Hogan would seem to be a perfect fit for the G.I. Joe universe, it would in fact be a complete catastrophe. We should consider ourselves lucky we ended up with Sergeant Slaughter, really. Now, as far as toys go, there's not much joy there. There have been a crap ton of Hulk Hogan action figures, but I couldn't find evidence of any in G.I. Joe scale. This sort of makes sense when you think about it. If you give a kid wrestling toys, they're gonna wanna bash them together, powerbomb them off the kitchen table, and slam them down the stairs. It's better to have larger, more sturdy toys for that than small G.I. Joe figures. This does mean that if you want G.I. Joe wrestling figures, you're gonna have to make them yourself. Yeah, from a toy perspective, it would make more sense to have a video that's would wrestlers work with He-Man? And yeah, they totally would. And that's about all I have to say about that. What, you were expecting something maybe a little different? Well, let me tell you something, brother. The Dempster is here to turn those expectations upside down and only unleash the 15-inch pythons right at the end, brother. Well, I'll see you next time. And don't forget the 3 commandments. Like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing. Brother.
If you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. I gotta be a man, I can't let it slide. I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real...
What? Oh, this? No. It's just a coincidence that the World Cup is going on right now. That's not having any effect on my schedule. I promise.